Hello, everybody. This is Sheri Flasch with the Esthetician Connection, and I've got Kari Poling with me today from Lightwave. Kari, we've got lots of people coming in the chat already, so welcome everybody coming in. What we're going to be doing today is going to be amazing. You're going to love this class. I've taken it before at the trade shows, and it is extremely informative, and it really helps you understand LED. How it works, what it does. The description of the class is for you to learn the scientific proven principles behind how the LED technology works. This is super important if you're offering these services. Talks about the correct colors of light, optimal dosage, and how you can use topical light infusion with them, which is also awesome. And what we're going to do for everybody coming in, wow, it's getting so full. Want to make sure that I remind you all that we do have a giveaway. We always have a giveaway. It's always fun. You know, I like to give stuff away. This is the ABI Honeysuckle Hydrating Mask and the Esthetician Connection Fan Brush. So you can apply it. 3 of you are going to win this. I love this jar. By the way, your new packaging rocks. I absolutely love your new packaging. This is a gel mask that is perfect for so many skin types. It is so hydrating. It is so cooling. 3 of you are going to win this. And the way that you enter to win this is take a photo of yourself taking this class. Just kind of snap a pic of you taking your Lightwave class. Post it on the Facebook group page and use the hashtag ECLovesLightwave, because that's how we're going to be able to look for the photo. So take a photo of you taking this class, use the hashtag ECLovesLightwave, and 3 of you are going to win the ABI Honeysuckle Gel Hydrating Mask and the EC Fan Brush. Kari, I want to thank you for doing this with us today. I know this is a nice bit of presentation, a lot of information, and you typically do this at the trade show, so I really appreciate you doing the presentation.
Absolutely. I'm excited about it, except, you know, obviously when I'm at the trade show, I can make sure I lock the doors and make sure that people stay and listen to me. Now I won't know if they're actually there or not, so I'll just be talking to myself half the time.
I'll be here. You'll be talking to me. We've got a lot of people in the class, so I don't think you have to worry too much about that. Everybody, if you've got questions for Kari or questions about LED, Lightwave, go ahead and type it in the question section on your Zoom app. Type that in. You might find that during the presentation, she answers the question for you, but at the end of the presentation, we're going to go through and review all of those questions. So that way we do know that any questions you have about LED or Lightwave are answered. If for some bizarre reason your question's not answered, when you leave the webinar, when you post your picture on the EC Facebook page and you use the hashtag ECLovesLightwave, just type your question in there and Kari will be on the page at some point. I'm sure we'll be able to get that answered. So don't worry too much about that. I want to thank everybody for coming. You know, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we've got our Zoom room, which is at 2 o'clock Eastern. And this week we've got Lightwave. And then on Thursday, we have ThermoClear, which is going to be another really interesting presentation. Kari, we have got over 100 people already in the Zoom room. One last reminder before I hand this over to Kari, and she'll be going through a PowerPoint with you guys, is I want to make sure that if you take a photo of yourself taking this class and you post it on the Esthetician Connection Facebook group page using the hashtag ECLovesLightwave, 3 of you are going to win the ABI Honeysuckle Hydrating Mask as well as the Esthetician Connection Fan Brush. It's a great combination for hydrating your skin. So 3 of you will get that. Kari, I'm going to pass this over to you. We've got well over 100 in the group. I think we'll probably get a few more stragglers coming in, but I'm handing it over. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, I'm super excited to be here. And just to kind of give you a little bit about who I am and where I come from and where the information comes from. Sheri, are you still with us? Wait, here, I'm not sure.
It's just you right now, Kari.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was not frozen. She froze, so.
Nope, you're good. You're
good with this whole technology thing. So anyways, I've been actually teaching on LED light therapy since 2002, learning about it, getting excited about it. When I learned about it in 2002, I first kind of was like, yeah, it's going to be one of those cool things that come and goes in the aesthetic world or in the medical world, but I don't see it sticking around. And then the more I learned about it and the more I found how it interacted with the body and what it was capable of and how much it worked and truly was an amazing technology, the more I got excited about it. So the more time I spent learning about it, wanting to find out about it. And so now I've kind of taken the past 20 years talking to as many people as I can about light therapy, seeing all the changes that I've made along the way. And now my goal is to share as much of that information with you. So I absolutely love the technology. It's not just something that I kind of dabble in. I'm super passionate about it. So hopefully I can answer your questions. If not, I probably know somebody or someone else that can make sure they have that information. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with understanding the basic of light therapy. So when we take a look at light therapy, there's an actual science behind light therapy. So this is kind of like the science of gravity or anything else. It actually has a definition. It's called biophotomodulation when you look at the science. When we take a look at what light therapy is, it actually has a science behind it. So the science is actually has a definition. And what kind of excited me about light therapy when I started to learn about it is, first, I thought this seems too good to be true. It can stimulate collagen elasticity. It can grow hair. It can help with fibromyalgia. It helps with all kinds of skin deformities and problems such as elephant man syndrome. It helps with post-stroke victims. So you start looking at all the things that light can do and you go, wait a minute, it seems too good to be true. But then what you realize when you look at the definition is it's actually the process of exposing the body to specific colors or wavelengths of light so that the body can heal faster and more effective. So the light is just a trigger mechanism to actually get the body to do what it should be doing, but isn't because of age or because of problems within the cells themselves. So when we start looking at what the definition of light therapy is, it's really the body that's the amazing system. So the body can grow hair, the body can produce collagen elasticity, the body can help defend against cells that are going rogue or not doing their job. So ultimately, when you look at light therapy, you have a 20,000-foot view of what that looks like. So when we look at light therapy in general, we have this bird's eye view. And the bird's eye view kind of shows what most of you already know. When we learn about light therapy, most of you know you've shined some lights on the body, then something in the body happens, and hopefully we have a good outcome. But what you don't understand is that it's very, very important to understand that how much light, what kind of light, how it's shined on the body, how you prep the skin, all of that matters. So when we look at the bird's eye view, the first thing you need to understand is that the vocab word that we kind of really want you to hone in on is photons. Photons are little particles of energy that make up light. So when we look at light, little particles of energy actually make up those photons. And so those little light particles are really what do the work. So the more photons you have, the better the outcome for your client. So you want to start with enough photons to actually energize enough of the cells in the body to make the change. So once you've gone ahead and you turn on your light device, you expose the body to these photons, the next thing that happens is your cells within the body come in contact with these photons. When these little light particles or photons or energy particles go into the body, one of three things can happen. They can be absorbed, they can be reflected, or they can pass right through your cells. The only way for light therapy to work is to first get those little energy particle photons into the body and then to get your cells to absorb them. So it has to first penetrate, then it has to be absorbed. Once that happens, if you take that energy and you get your cells to absorb it, the body is able to actually utilize that energy to create the fuel that drives your cells, ATP, and that creates more collagen, elastin, essential proteins, and enzymes. So ultimately, our whole goal is making sure we get enough of these little light particles into the body, into the cells, so that the cells can work faster and more effectively. So when we start looking at that, there is actual dosage that is required for light therapy. So what is the dosage? Dosage, when you start talking about it, is determined by your penetration and your absorption of those little light particles. So kind of think of it when you're doing a peel, for example. You want to know what's the percentage of the peel that you're doing? How do you prep the skin? The goal is to get as much of that peel solution into the tissue so that it works faster and more effectively. So people always ask me, well, how do you feel about putting on a clear gel mask between the light and the actual skin cells? And I said, well, what's your end goal? If your end goal is to get all of these little light particles into the skin and you put on a clear gel mask, you could possibly be inhibiting some of those light particles into the skin tissue. So I see it all the time where people are constantly putting on things on the skin and then they're putting light over it and they're basically thinking they're doing some good here. Well, it's kind of like if someone said, well, I'm going to do a peel, but I'm going to go ahead and put on a clear gel mask, and then I'll put the peel on top of the clear gel mask. Well, the goal of the peel is to get the peel solution into the skin tissue. By putting on a clear gel mask and putting the peel over top, you would be inhibiting the function of the peel. Same thing happens when you do light therapy. When we start taking a look at light therapy and we say, okay, well, we want to make sure that we get the best possible outcome. We want to make sure that the skin is properly prepped and that we're not putting things that are going to inhibit that dosage, that little light particle penetration. So we're going to talk a little bit about dosage. How do we make sure we get good penetration and absorption of those light particles? We have to look at wavelength, power output, design, prepping the skin. So we're going to kind of talk about those functions and how they work. First and foremost, for light therapy to work, you have to have the right wavelength. So wavelength, what is wavelength? So when we look at wavelength, all light travels in waves. So just like radio waves, we can turn on the radio, we hear them. We know they're traveling in waves, they make it to our ears, we can hear them, they vibrate the inside of our ear canals. Same thing happens with light. These little light particles get together like girls go into the bathroom, they stick together, and then they travel in these little waveforms. So these little waveforms are traveling from any light device. It doesn't matter if it's LED, it doesn't matter if it's the light in your office or your home. These little light particles, known as photons, get together and they travel in these waveforms. Now, if you see a certain color of light, it has a certain distance between the top two peaks of your waves. So when we take a look at here, you can see wavelength, we have these two peaks here. We can actually go ahead and see if we see a certain color, it will have exact distance. So for example, if I gave you a meter stick and I said, measure the room that you're in, you could take your meter stick, you could measure the parameters of the room and you could say it's so big. Well, with wavelength, they're actually measuring the distance from this particular crest to this particular crest. And what they're looking for is how far it is. And they measure it in what we call a nanometer. So a nanometer is the distance between how this light particle is traveling. So for example, when we look at this particular light spectrum, this is for all visible light. All visible light falls between 400 nanometers and 700 nanometers. The smaller the number, the shorter the wavelength. So the shorter this little light, this little wave right here starts to penetrate, the bigger the number, the longer the wavelength. So when we have a really short wavelength, that means it has a whole lot of energy associated with it and it cannot go very far into the body. Why? Because if it has too much energy, it can damage your internal organs. So your body by design and your skin is very, very smart. So it says keep all of that energy from getting to the heart, liver, lungs, because that energy could actually destroy your heart, liver, lungs. So that's why when we go out in the sun and we expose our body to UV light, all that energy is absorbed in the outside layers of tissue. And if we get too much energy, it will actually result in a sunburn. So we go ahead and we take a look at the nanometers to determine how far in the body it's going to go. The bigger the nanometer, the further in the body it can travel. The shorter the nanometer, the less depth it can travel. So if we have to get these little particles into the body, we have to look at our nanometer or our number or wavelength that is traveling. So when we kind of look here, blue light energy is very, very superficial. If someone said, I love using blue light for helping with fat and the smoothing out of the back of the legs, I would say false. There's no way for you to be using blue light to help with your subcutaneous fat. Why? Because it can't penetrate deep enough into the body to actually affect the subcutaneous fat layer. So when you start looking at how far and how deep into the body it can travel, it's based on your wavelength that you see. And since all cells have a unique absorption spectrum, which will determine what kind of energy can be absorbed, it's almost like a lock and key mechanism. So when we take a look at a little photon of energy, some photons of energy can penetrate into some cells and others it doesn't. So when we take a look here and we say light must be absorbed by the body to produce this energy, we take a look and we see, okay, when we look at some of these, if we go ahead and we have the wrong color of light, it's going to be absorbed by the water content or the melanin in the skin. So we only have an optimal window in which it can be absorbed. So we have to take a look at what is that window that can be absorbed. And so when we take a look at cells here, for example, your mast cells, they're for wound healing, anti-inflammatory, anti-edema. Infrared light with the 4 X's indicated that those little photon particles of infrared light can go into your mast cells and be absorbed very, very quickly, very easily. So if I'm trying to get a wound healing response from the body, when I shine different wavelengths of light or colors of light on it, the infrared light is going to be much more effective than the red light. When I take a look at getting rid of toxicity in the body, I want to get rid of all the extra digested material that's been broken down. So let's say I'm doing lymphatic drainage. Infrared light is going to be much better at lymphatic drainage than red light is. Now, if I want to build collagen elastin, red light is going to be much better at building collagen elastin. So when you look at the different wavelengths, there are different cell receptor sites that can absorb these photons in different ways. So when you start looking at how the cells are absorbing the different wavelengths of light, different colors of light will have a different effect on the body and on the tissue itself. Now, when we look at the wavelengths or colors of light, if it's very superficial, that blue light is going to go ahead and only be able to destroy P. acne. That's the primary function. So if you think you're shining blue light on the face and you're going, well, it's going to help produce collagen elasticity, or it's going to help detoxify the tissue, first and foremost, it's not going to go deep enough. And then it's also not going to be absorbed into those particular cells. So the blue light is primarily, when you look at all the studies that have been done, just for killing acne, P. acne bacteria. And when you look at the red light primarily is going to help produce collagen, elastin, and be very anti-inflammatory near the surface of the skin. So it's not going to do much for the deeper skin tissue. So if you have a deep joint issue or a problem, you've just had surgery, your red light's not going to do a whole lot for that pain management. That's where the infrared light's going to come and it's going to help reduce inflammatory issues deeper in the body. So red light is still considered very superficial. It's primarily absorbed by the mitochondria. It's going to help with stimulating the collagen elastin production. And then the infrared light is going to be much deeper penetrating. It's going to really help reduce toxicity. It's going to reduce inflammation deeper in the body. It's going to increase circulation. So when I look at light therapy and I'm helping people to understand what light therapy is all about, if you are doing a treatment on somebody and you want them to have a better product absorption, so let's say after you've done light therapy, you put some product topical on and you want it to absorb better, you're going to go ahead and make sure when you did light therapy, you did infrared light. The infrared light is going to help remove all the toxicity out of that tissue, but it's also going to increase circulation and make sure it has a better uptake of whatever ingredients you're putting on the skin tissue. So kind of thinking if you want whatever you're happening after your light therapy to be primarily absorbed very well, you're going to make sure that during the light therapy session, they're getting infrared light. So sometimes people go, well, I just care about the collagen elasticity. I don't really care whether they are getting a detoxification process. Well, the other big caveat of infrared light is that it also helps with absorption of topicals after you've done that because you're increasing circulation and you get a better uptake of those things. So let's take a look right here of power. Is power important? Power is extremely important when you're doing light therapy because we only have an optimal window at which cells can go ahead and absorb the power. You have to have enough power, but not so much power it actually damages the tissue. So here is from Dr. Goldberg's book, kind of a chart showing you that if you do not have enough power, you have zero effect on the body. And then if you have too much power, you will actually damage the body. And I like to think of it kind of like a cake. If I'm baking a cake in the oven, I can't just put it on a low temperature and let it be in there for 24 hours. That cake won't bake. It's not going to have the same outcome as that if I put that cake at 350 and I baked it for 20 minutes. So there is an optimal window at which to bake a cake. You have to have enough energy to create the change, the chemical change that's going to happen within that cake. Now, when you start talking about light therapy, we have the same parameters. We have between 30 milliwatts of power up to 200 milliwatts of power. Anything under 30 milliwatts of power, and you really don't have enough energy to create any kind of effect on the body. Now, if we exceed 200 milliwatts of power, we can actually create damage as well, it's more laser-like and has too much energy, and it's going to be kind of like if you burn that cake. We can't just turn the oven up to 500 degrees and then bake the cake in half the time. So your cells are the same way. We have to have a certain amount of power, and then we have to have a certain amount of exposure time. So are they going to be under the light for 90 seconds? Are they going to be under the light for 2 minutes? Are they going to be under the light for 20 minutes? So the amount of time that they're under the light will be directly related to how much power you're putting out. So kind of like if my oven's set at 325, I'm going to bake my cake for a little less than if I put it at 350. I'm going to bake my cake for a little more than if I put it at 350, which is going to go then a little less time. So the more power you have, the less time of exposure to the lights you'll need. So sometimes when I see these handhelds that say, hey, you only need 2 minutes of exposure time, but then you look at how low powered the device is, they really need closer to 20 or 30 minutes of time in order to get enough dosage to create that kind of change that you're looking for in the body. And then the next question is, how often can you do light therapy treatments? If you are underpowered and you are not getting enough power and dosage, you could do it daily because you're only hitting a couple of your cell targets. You're not hitting all the cells with energy, you're only hitting a couple. If you are using a high-powered system, then you can do it every 24 to 48 hours, depending on which cell lines you're hitting. For pain, every 24 hours. For collagen elastin stimulation, the studies show every 48 hours. So what if I can only do it once a month? Is that beneficial? Well, absolutely. It's like exercise. If I exercise once a month, that's better than not exercising at all. So if I can give a little extra energy to the cells and it's only once a month, is it going to produce amazing results? Probably not. But is it going to be beneficial to our cells? Absolutely. So we kind of look at how often can you do treatments. Ideally, you would do them every 48 hours. That's not realistic for most people in a professional setting, so you give them a good dose, you send them home with a little handheld that they can do in between your professional treatments, and then they come back once or twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, and they get those treatments, especially near the beginning. You're really trying to get enough energy in the cells so that they start stimulating collagen elastin. So think about it, if you only have 1 million cells making collagen elastin, or I can get enough energy where those million cells can divide, become 2 million, those 2 million become 4 million, 4 million become 8 million, 8 becomes 16 million, and before you know it, I have 16 million cells producing collagen elastin. How much better is your skin going to look? Significantly. So it's all about getting energy into the body, making sure that we're doing it often enough that you see those effects on the body. Now, how do you prep the skin? So when we take a look at skin prep, it's going to be very similar to prepping for a peel. With a peel, you're trying to make sure that you degrease the skin, you get as much of that peel solution into the tissue. Same thing with light therapy. You want to make sure you get as much photon or light energy into the tissue. So how do I ensure that I get enough light energy into the tissue? Well, I take all the roadblocks away. So how do I do that? I go ahead and I exfoliate. If I'm going to do microdermabrasion, it's going to go before light therapy so that we get more light particles or photon energy into the skin. If I'm going to do a lactic acid prep, I would do that prior to doing the light therapy so that we get more light therapy into the tissue. So many times, if you're going to do something that's removing dead skin, that is doing some form of exfoliation, it is going to come before the light therapy so that those little particles of energy can easily get into the tissue and then you can get a high dosage to your cells. There are a couple times at which you don't do light therapy first. And so that can be a little bit confusing, but light therapy comes before an aggressive treatment. So if, for example, you're going to have downtime with the treatment you're doing, you're going to do a TCA peel and you're going to have downtime, then the light therapy would come before the peel so that you're getting the body ready to heal. You get the mast cells standing by. Now, if you're not going to have any downtime, then you're going to go ahead and do the exfoliation first, and then the LED comes second. So you have to ask yourself, is there a couple days of healing necessary with this treatment that you're going to pair the light therapy with? If there is, then the light therapy comes first. If there's not, so microneedling, for example. Light therapy is going to come after the microneedling, but it can also come before the microneedling, so you can actually split it up, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But let's talk a little bit about how you're going to place your LED system. The placement of the panels is extremely important. So whether it's a handheld and makes direct skin contact, or whether it's a professional system, you need to have the panels close, because the further you get away from the light, the more light you lose, the less effective the light can be. So the closer it is, the higher the dosage. And so keeping understanding that, hey, you need to have it close in order to get that effect on the body, to get that kind of outcome you're looking for. So the placement of panels is really important. And so I'm just going to take a minute, hopefully I can do this without screwing it up, and go back to me, because I want to show you some light therapy and show you kind of the difference when we look at dosage and power, just so you really in your mind get an understanding of what photons are all about. So I'm going to do a little bit of a demo for you so you can kind of understand that with this light device here. So let's see here. Is this back to, am I correct? Am I back on full screen?
Yeah, it's just you right now.
Okay, so let's take a look at this light device right here. If I turn this particular pad set on, you guys can see right here we have this, oops, I turned on the wrong one. Oops, stop. Okay, so this particular pad set here, I'm going to put red light coming out of it. So can everyone see? Here we have red light coming out of this pad set. On the back of this particular pad set, there are also indicator lights. So can everyone see that right here? We have a little indicator light on this particular pad set. It tells us that it's working and that it's on. If I put my finger over that and I really push hard and I put that light right as deep into the tissue as possible, you can see it kind of starts to come through that finger, where you can kind of see the light is penetrating through the tissue. Now, if I take, that's a really cheap LED with very few photons coming out of it. So you can see right here, it has some effect where it's coming through the fingernail and you can see the effect. Now, if I take a high-powered LED and I cover all of them except for one here, so I have one little LED and I put my finger over it, you can see the difference here of how it is affecting tissue penetration. So here, I put my finger over it and it goes right through the finger. Everyone see that? So here you can see this has enough photons, even with one of the little diodes, to actually penetrate the tissue all the way through. So that's pumping out a whole bunch of photons, so the dosage there is significantly more. So that light energy will get deeper into the tissue, it will affect more cells. Where if I'm looking at the one on the back, which is a low-powered LED, it will have little to no effect on the tissue here. So that's where dosage is extremely important. We need to make sure we have enough photon energy, that it's getting into the body, that it's making that kind of effect on the tissue. So when people say, hey, I got this great Amazon mask and I love it and I want to use it all the time, my biggest concern is, okay, well, how much dosage is it putting out? How much power is it putting out? Are you getting enough to affect the tissue? If you're not affecting the tissue, you're wasting your client's time, you're wasting your own time. So just to kind of see, you have to have enough photon energy to affect the tissue. So that's where standing next to your car tail lights is not going to cut it. You can't just have your husband hit the brakes, put your face next to the car tail lights and think, oh, I'm getting light therapy. You have to have the right wavelength. You have to have enough power in order to do so. The other thing I want to bring up is sometimes people don't understand too. I'm going to share, let's see, make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Are we back to share screen? Is that right?
Not quite yet. Try it again.
How about now?
No.
How about now?
Not yet.
Oh my. Alt S, it says. Now? Shouldn't have taken it off. I knew it.
It's okay. We'll figure it out. It's not showing yet.
Huh. Nothing?
No.
Just me?
Just you. Hang on. Let me try something here on my end real quick. All right, now try it.
Okay. How about now?
Perfect.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up that I didn't cover, which I think is really important, is a lot of people invest in those cheap masks they're seeing on Amazon. And one of my biggest fears is you not knowing what you're actually dosing your clients with. Not saying all the masks are like this, but some of them are. So if we go back to looking at wavelength here, and we see, okay, well, each color of light has a specific wavelength. When you look at an LED has what we call bandwidth. What that means is when we get a red LED, it could have a plus or minus 5 bandwidth, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 20, plus or minus 100. So when we look at the bandwidth of an LED, that is how much it will vary in color and how much it will vary in that wavelength. The more expensive generally the LED, the more narrow the bandwidth. So some of these masks on Amazon, they have a really broad bandwidth. So that means if this mask has blue in it, and let's say they're selling it with a 450 blue, but it has a plus or minus of 100, that means that 450 blue could actually be containing 350 UV, or it could be containing some 550 green, which doesn't have the same effect on tissue. So here you are exposing your client to what you think is blue light, and if you haven't found out your bandwidth when you purchase your equipment, then you may be exposing them to a lot of different wavelengths, and only some of the photons are pumping out the correct wavelengths, and in fact, you may be exposing them to UV light and prematurely aging their skin, especially in the blue spectrum. So it's just something I want to point out, that when you're purchasing these light devices, you need to be asking the bandwidth. For example, the Lightwave system has a bandwidth of plus or minus 5. So if it's pumping out a 420, it's 425 or it's 415. It doesn't drop into the UV spectrum. So just kind of keep in mind when we're looking at the light spectrum, the wavelength is really important, but so is the bandwidth, what type of LEDs they're using. So if someone says, hey, I can go stand next to my car taillights, have my husband hit the brakes, and I'm getting red light, some of that red light may be orange, some of it may be yellow, some of it may be infrared. So if it has a broad bandwidth, you could be exposing the body to different wavelengths and not getting a very therapeutic effect. So understanding that, hey, you have to have enough power, you have to have the right wavelength or color of light in order to get a good treatment. And then you have to do it often enough to affect enough cells in the body that you get a good outcome. So as an esthetician or a skincare provider, you need to make sure you're prepping the skin just like you would for a peel. You want to make sure you exfoliate, that you allow as much photon or light energy into the tissue. You're not putting anything else on the tissue at the time. You're removing all the dead skin cells prior to it. Then you're also making sure the light device is very, very close to the skin. I always say make it as close as you possibly can so that you're not losing light particles. It would be kind of like if you were applying a peel from a distance and you're shooting it at a client. You want to get as close as you can so that peel solution makes it onto the skin tissue. Same thing with light therapy. You want to make sure those LEDs are as close to the skin as possible so they get the best possible photon absorption. Now, keep in mind, it's the properties of light that create the change, not heat. So you don't have to have your client's skin get warm in order for it to work. Now, let's talk a little bit about hands-free versus the handheld systems. Hands-free systems are great because you can create and dose a large area instead of focusing on a small area. The handhelds, if you think about it, a handheld is pumping out so much. Let's say we have a hands-free system and we have a handheld and they're pumping out the same amount of energy or photons. So they're going to have the same effect. Well, one is going to cover the entire face. One is only going to cover a small portion of the face. So you may have to hold it there for 20 minutes before moving it to another area, and maybe it's another 20 or 30 minutes and then moving it to another area. The handheld can be very difficult in the treatment room because you could be 2 or 3 hours into a treatment before you actually got the same dosage as you would with a hands-free system. So kind of keep that in mind. The handheld, even if it's the same dosage as a hands-free, it's still going to have to remain in that area for a very long time, generally anywhere between 15 minutes up to 30 minutes for light therapy to actually work. 2 minutes, not going to happen no matter which light therapy or handheld device you're using. You have to remain there long enough to get enough energy into the skin. Now, what are the immediate effects after you've done a single light therapy session? Great thing about light therapy is you can do just one session and make a great change at a cellular level for your clients. First thing that happens is you get more energy into those cells. So the energy increases, which means then if I have more gas in the tank or more energy in the cells, they can do more things. They can start dividing and make more of themselves. So all of a sudden now those fibroblasts are going crazy. They're making more collagen elasticity. People that buy all the time treatments, let's say I buy a little jar or cream that has collagen in it, I kind of laugh because I'm like, well, you can put that jar or that cream on your skin and hope that a little collagen goes in, or we can do a really good session of light therapy and we can get millions of cells making collagen. So that's where I get really excited about light therapy. I'd rather have my body doing it, making it constantly over and over again. It releases endorphins, so it makes your clients happy. Happy people buy stuff. So if you want to sell your clients another package of microderm, you want to sell your clients that cream, whatever it is, you do light therapy, talk to them after light therapy, not before, because that endorphin release will help them to be more compliant. Happy people are more compliant. So it does release endorphins if they are not in what we call the fight or flight motion. So when you're doing light therapy on someone, you want to make sure they're very relaxed, they're breathing slowly, they hopefully will fall asleep. That's a very good indication that the LED is working because you're forcing their cells to go to work while they're awake, which can make you very tired. It reduces inflammation. So you start to see redness go down. You start to see inflammatory effects start to change. It increases product penetration. It increases oxygenation to the tissue. It restores normal cellular function. So that's where if I can get the cells working normally, someone with psoriasis, someone with some kind of cellular problems, oftentimes will benefit from light therapy because now the body is working correctly. So over 24 different changes start to occur once you get extra energy into the body. And that's from a single dosage of light therapy at the correct photon power output. Now, if you're just doing a little bit of power, it's not going to have the same effect. Long-term results of light therapy is why we do it again and again and again. If you do light therapy more than once, and you start getting up close to 6 sessions, 8 sessions, 10 sessions, we start to see that tissue is actually repaired. So damaged tissue starts to repair itself. We start to see that the moisture levels in the tissue also start to increase. So if you have someone who has really dry skin, or they're complaining they're dry all the time, and then they do light therapy, you may find that their skin is not nearly as dry. It has a lot more moisture content, and you may have to change their products that they're using at home following light therapy sessions because their moisture content starts to change. It will increase lymphatic dosage drainage. So the lymphatics will start to work a little bit harder. So when they first start light therapy, they may feel a little sluggish because now all the toxins are coming out of the skin tissue in the body. It's going to smooth out pigmentation. So one thing I want to mention about light therapy for pigmentation, it does not work on dead cells. So skin cells that are dead, light therapy doesn't do anything to those. So if I'm looking at pigmentation that exists on the surface of the skin, that has already happened. It's going to help break up pigmentation layers deep, and it's going to help with pigmentation that has not surfaced. Once it's surfaced, the best course of action would either be IPL or some kind of lightning treatment because we are working on the surface of the skin. Light therapy is going to work much deeper. So when you're looking at light therapy for pigmentation, think of it as working at the source of where the pigment's coming from, not at the end result of the pigment. So oftentimes people will go, well, I put it on this spot I have and I haven't seen it change much. Well, no, it's increasing the changes at a lower level so that that spot eventually won't keep being there. It's going to thicken and firm the skin. It's going to increase collagen elasticity and reduce flaccidity. So fine lines and wrinkles will start to improve. Is it the same as a facelift? No, but it's getting your body to work optimally. So you start looking at, okay, some of these things start to improve where I don't look as tired. I have a brighter look to my skin. The blood flow is going, and then now all of a sudden a little bit of collagen elasticity. Everything is a little pick-me-up. So it's not the facelift, it's just a slight pick-me-up. So just kind of keep that in mind. Here's a biopsy of a woman in her late 40s. When we do take a look at collagen production, when does collagen production start to decrease? 25. When is it primarily recycling what we have? By the age of 35. So here what we did is we did a biopsy on her face, right by her ear, of a woman in her late 40s. You can see the collagen bundle growth was very, very small, and that's going to continue to decrease. So then we did several sessions. I think it was a total of 10 sessions on this particular woman, and we waited 6 months. And then we did another biopsy, and we saw the collagen growth was significantly higher. So what this did is it got me really excited about light therapy, because here I can see exactly what is happening. So the collagen bundle growth significantly increased after doing light therapy. They were not doing any skincare. They were not doing anything else at home, because we wanted to see the full effects of the light therapy. So we simply went ahead and did the before, and then we did the after. Why did we wait 6 months? Well, collagen takes between 3 and 6 months to grow. Once it's been triggered, it takes a while for that collagen to grow. So elasticity takes between 8 and 12 weeks to grow. Collagen takes between 3 and 6 months. How do I make it closer to the 3 month than I do the 6 month? Exfoliate. The more exfoliation you do, the quicker the collagen will grow. So the more I tear it down, the faster the body will build it up. Now, if I just wait and I don't tear it down, then it'll take anywhere upwards of 6 months for that collagen growth to happen. So once we've given the energy to the body is able to make these repairs. So cells make collagen, Lightwave stimulates the cells. So the more Lightwave you do, the more collagen that you will get, as long as you have the proper wavelength and dosage. So what does a standard anti-aging protocol look like? First thing I would do is cleanse the skin. I would expose the skin to red and infrared light for anywhere between 14 and 20 minutes with our device, and that would be determined by your power output. Then you would apply antioxidants post-care. The best antioxidant post-care that has been proven so far for light therapy is green tea. Matcha green tea is more powerful than the regular green tea, but post-care LED, we see better results when we apply green tea post-care. Helps reduce the reactive oxygen species in the body that are created from the new cells being made. So if you can apply antioxidants, specifically the green tea post-care LED, you will find that your results are much better. Generally, they come in twice a week for 4 to 5 weeks. The first week, I might do 3 times if they're a little hard on their body or they don't look good for their age. Total treatment times are generally between 8 and 10 treatments. So people always ask me, well, how many treatments do I tell them they need? That's one of the hardest questions. So I always say, well, play the guessing game with them. When you look at someone and you go, wow, they look really good for their age, they'll need 6 treatments. If you look at someone and you go, wow, she doesn't look good for her age, she's going to need closer to 10 to 12 treatments. So I recommend that everybody sell their treatments in a package of 6, and then either they'll need 1 package or they'll need 2 packages, depending on how good they look for their age. The better they look for their age, the better their cellular health is. The less of an improvement light therapy is going to make. The worse off they look for their age, the better the effect of light therapy, because you're improving the cellular health. So here's a woman, she's my neighbor Tina. I did a case study on her and I cut out her eyebrows because she had them tattooed and I didn't want it to affect what I was seeing. She's in her 70s. So why I chose this picture is I want people to understand that light therapy will affect tissue, it will improve the tone and texture of the tissue at any age, even if they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, it will make those changes. Here's someone, fine lines and wrinkles, you can kind of see the changes here. It's not a facelift, but you start to see the tone, texture, and improvement over time, taking a look at them. Acne protocol. So how does acne and light therapy work? It's a 1-2 mechanism. So the first thing you always want to do with acne is you're going to cleanse the skin, you're going to exfoliate and get any kind of bacteria out to the surface of the skin. Extractions come before light therapy, so that if you're exposing any bacteria, you can then kill the bacteria with the light. So your exfoliation and extractions on any acne client comes before you do light therapy. Once you've done the extraction, then the first thing you're going to do is expose blue light to your client. The blue light is actually going to create a singlet oxygen-free radical molecule that's going to kill the bacteria. So we actually use a free radical. The blue light creates a free radical that's going to kill the bacteria that is on the skin. Now you have to have the waste byproduct from acne in order for this to work. So if I expose someone who has no acne to blue light, no free radical is created because I have to have acne poop, I like to think of, in order for it to work. So if someone has acne, they have a waste byproduct or acne poop, this little porphyrin coming out of the P. acne bacteria. I expose it to blue light, and then all of a sudden that little acne poop loses an electron, becomes a free radical, and it kills the bacteria itself. So it's really important when you're doing LED light therapy for acne is the blue light comes first. You go ahead and create a free radical, you kill the bacteria that the body was being exposed to, and then you follow it with the red light. You get rid of the free radicals, you go ahead and reduce inflammation, and you start the healing process. So when you're doing acne, blue light always comes first, creating free radicals that actually kill the bacteria. Then you follow it with the red light to get rid of those free radicals, reduce inflammation. So it's a 1-2 punch. And then you apply your masks or antioxidants post-care, and they generally will come in twice a week for the first couple weeks. By the third treatment is generally when they start to see the change. Now keep in mind, acne can purge. So I've had people that have done 1 to 2 treatments of light therapy and they think the light therapy makes it worse, when in fact that is not the case. The light therapy is actually improving their skin, but because it's purging, they think it's making it worse. So if you're going to do LED for acne, make sure you do at least a minimum of 3 sessions. You don't want to go ahead and start the process and finish or quit it before you actually start to see those change. So here's someone, she is not done yet with the acne protocol. So I would continue with the blue and red because she still has deep pustules under the skin that need to be targeted. But this is just showing you, this is her 3rd session. By her 3rd session, it's starting to dramatically improve what is active acne. Here is Kaylee. So she was a severe case that I treated. This was over a 6-month process from start to finish. I went through first and treated her acne, and then I treated her scarring. The acne, I stopped treating that at 12 weeks, and then I went into scarring mode. So she had dermatitis on the side of her face, severe case of it. Really, really tough case, but she was very, very compliant and got great results. So this is just using the ABI skincare, light therapy, and the topical light infusion, which we'll talk about. So combining light therapy with the peels. So if I'm going to do it with a peel and I decide I want to go ahead and have those 2 things together, what I'm going to do is make sure that first I'm going to prep the skin, and then if the peel is going to have any kind of recovery time. So that's where I was talking earlier in the presentation. Where does light therapy come in the session? If it requires recovery time, then you can go ahead and you can do infrared light to help with getting mast cells standing by and speed up the recovery process. And so you would do infrared light before your peel. So you would expose the body to 10 minutes of infrared light, and what that's going to do is get the mast cells standing by, help speed up the healing process, help detoxify the skin tissue, and also make sure that you get a better uptake of the peel. So it'll increase the absorption of the peel solution. So you expose 10 minutes of the infrared light first. And the reason you don't want to do infrared light after a peel is because infrared light energy has a little bit of heat associated with it. So you don't want any kind of heat to be applied to the skin after you've done an ablative procedure. So you do the 10 minutes of infrared light first, you complete your peel, and then you can do your 10 minutes of red light afterwards to stimulate the collagen elasticity. So that's if you can take the peel solution off, and if it's neutralized. If it's a peel solution like TCA or Jesner that you leave on, you can still do the red light afterwards, but you would want to increase your time because you're trying to get through the peel solution, and so you need a higher dosage. Then you apply your sunscreens, and then they would come back depending on how aggressive the treatment is, possibly day 3, 7, and 10 for a decently aggressive peel. So just to kind of give you an idea of where it would fit if you're doing it with a peel. Wound healing. Here's a woman, she was in a car accident. She had a puncture wound to the face. It actually was open for 6 months without any kind of healing aspect going on. So a doctor down in Mexico decided that he was going to try light therapy on it. use light therapy, and this was after the 2nd session, you can start to see reepithelialization. After the 8th session, we actually start to see blood supply. So it was actually very, very interesting to me, and I like to share it because it shows the wound healing effect of the light therapy itself. So even if you think nothing's happening because it's working on a cellular level, when you start to see these kind of pictures and the pictures of the biopsies, you see there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't always see, especially with the right dosage and the right wavelength. Post laser, this is a very aggressive CO2 laser. Generally, day 6, you would be looking like you do day 3. So we can combine the LED with post laser to help with the wound healing aspect of it. So that is generally light therapy and kind of what light therapy is all about. I'm going to talk about a second treatment that we also have on our device because I think it's really important. This treatment, people try to knock it off all the time, and they try to do it at home and they don't understand what they're doing, or they try to do it with another LED device and they think they're doing the same thing, but they're not. So on our device, we have 2 different technologies. We have LED light therapy, which I've talked about, where we get energy to your cells and these cells make the change. Then we have what's known as topical light infusion, which is a second modality or a second device on our machine, and that actually uses light to push in topicals. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that works. It's a separate technology from LED light therapy, but they work very, very well together. So first and foremost, we have to understand that in order for topicals to get into skin, there's really one of 3 ways it can get through the skin. It can go in through your hair follicles, the sebaceous glands, or right across the tissue. If it goes across the tissue, it can be known as what we call the intercellular route or the transcellular route. The intercellular route is what most of us are accustomed to. You put on a topical, you wait, and it goes through the brick and mortar of the skin and then finds the actual cells. Transcellular route is when we actually inject it. So the injection process starts to happen. So the injection starts to occur. So we go ahead and we take, for example, Botox. The transcellular route would be where we go ahead and we inject it right into the tissue itself. So that's the transcellular route when we actually use an injection. So most people, they rely on the intercellular route in order to get topicals in. You put cream on and then you wait for it to be absorbed. Well, the skin is just like a screen. Certain things go in, other things stay out. So when we go ahead and we put some of these great new topicals that have been developed, a lot of times they sit on top of the skin. They don't actually go into the tissue. And so we waste all of these great products because they simply get rinsed off. So as an esthetician or skincare provider, how do you know if something's going in the body or being kept out? Well, oftentimes we can look like a TCA, for example. We put that on the tissue and immediately we see some kind of response from the skin. It gets red, it feels like it's on fire. Those are all indications that it went into the skin. Now, oftentimes we can put a cream on and we don't see any immediate effect to the tissue. So we're left to wonder, did it go in? Did it stay out? Well, when they look and they develop drugs that you have to put on the skin and hope that it goes in or know that it goes in, for example, hormone creams, nicotine patches, they make sure that they go in. So how do they ensure these drugs get into the body? Well, they look at what's known as the 500 Dalton rule. We weigh ourselves in pounds. So all of you can climb onto the scale and you can know how much you weigh. If I say 500 pounds, we envision something larger than if I say 50 pounds. So we kind of look at the weight and that determines the size that we see. Molecules are weighed in Daltons. So when we create a formulation like a skincare formulation or a drug formulation like a nicotine patch, it has a Dalton weight to it. That's all the molecules together and we actually weigh it. And we say, okay, that's the Dalton weight. If a molecule is larger than 500 Daltons, then we go ahead and we see that it can't fit through the screen. So if it's larger than 500 Daltons, it's going to stay outside of the skin and not get to the lower layers of tissue. So the 500 Dalton rule, if you Google that, you can kind of see that determines what goes into the body and what stays out. So ideally, all of our skincare, if we knew the Dalton weight, we would know if something goes in or if it stays out. Over the 500 Daltons, it's going to stay out. If it's under 500 Daltons, it's going to go in. So just understanding that 500 Dalton rule. So when you develop skincare in the labs, most of the time they say it doesn't really matter if it's over 500 Daltons because people are going to use it morning and night for the rest of their life. And they may get a teeny tiny bit in through compromised or broken skin, and so that's good enough. But if they're making a drug, like all the 30, I think there's 38 drugs on the market that you actually wear as a patch and it has to actually infuse into the body, all of them are under 500 Daltons. So what does that have to do with the light device? Well, first let's take a look at some of these peptides that are being developed in your skincare. Epidermal growth factor, that's 6,000 Daltons. GHK, which is a copper peptide, which is FDA approved for wound healing, 340 Daltons. So that one's going in. But growth factors, we have to actually damage the tissue with something like microneedling or some other way to get it in, because if we just put growth factors on the skin, they're not going to actually go into the tissue. Hyaluronic acid is 15,000 to 2 million Daltons. It's great at helping the skin to increase water retention, but it's not something where I can take that hyaluronic acid, put it on my elbow and go, oh, that's so much more fluid. Or then when people buy collagen products with collagen in them, 300K Daltons, that's 300,000 Daltons to 375,000 Daltons. So that right there, when they're buying that product with the collagen in it, it's not actually going into the body, it's staying out. And then I've given you right here at the bottom of the screen, you can see the study that I referenced. There's thousands and thousands of ingredients in that study. And what that study basically talks about is how we've come up with great ingredients in the skincare industry, but no way of delivering them. So that's where our new technology that we have on our light device becomes very, very handy. So that's the topical light infusion. So what is topical light infusion? Topical light infusion is a process in where we use specific wavelengths or colors of light at very specific pulses to drive in skincare compounds that are larger than 500 Daltons or smaller, but we can actually drive them into the body. So how does that work? Well, the first thing that happens is we go ahead and we apply the cream or the serum to the top layer of the skin. Sometimes it's one serum, sometimes it's two serums, depending on what product you're using that we offer. I think we have 13 different formulations right now, but we apply them to the skin. The next thing that happens is you find the corresponding setting on your device. So for example, if I'm using collagen treatment, I place that topical on the skin, then I go to the light therapy device, I find that particular setting, and I go ahead and match it up with that topical. I hit start. Once it's hit start, that light device then starts to pulse. And what happens is it goes on and sends out energy, and then it turns off and the energy dissipates. Then it turns on and it hits the molecule with more energy, stimulates it, and then it starts to dissipate. So it goes on, off, on, off, on, off, and it can actually do this 1,000 times a second, 500 times a second. So this repeated on-off motion is causing the light energy to hit these particular molecules again and again and again. And the biggest thing is when the light goes off, the energy leaves the molecule. By hitting it, energizing it, and then it leaving the molecule over and over, it allows these molecules to fold upon themselves. So in here, so these molecules are pulsed on and off, and what happens is it folds upon itself. So in 2004, they found out that all molecules actually have a hinging effect at which they can fold upon themselves. So if we go ahead and we hit it with energy and then the energy turns off, and then we hit it with energy and then energy turns off, what causes every time the energy leaves is the molecule starts to fold. So these molecules start to fold upon themselves, and by doing so, it makes it small enough to actually, even with 1 million Daltons, get through this skin-like structure, this screen-like structure, to get to the lower layers. So if we pulse it too much, it'll actually go past the skin layer where it needs to be and into the bloodstream. If we don't pulse it enough, it doesn't go into the tissue far enough to create a change. So that's why each formulation we've developed has its own setting to determine how much pulsing it needs, how fast the pulsing is, how long they need to be under the light, to determine where that molecule needs to end up inside the body so that it doesn't just go straight to the bloodstream and then is ineffective. So this hinging effect, Here you can kind of see results. This is just with an infusion of topicals. So here you can kind of see crepiness before. We infused the topicals 8 different times into her skin, so she only used the topical 8 times and made significant changes to her tissue. Here we did a split face. This is Terry that works for us. On one side of his face, we put it around the eye area. You can see underneath and the eyelid itself. And 8 times into it, it starts to firm up the eye tissue. This is just simply with a topical. So here are the 2 technologies that are on the device. There's LED light wave therapy, which is what most of you are accustomed to, where no topical is used. It's always applied to clean bare skin. The light is what makes the cells work more effectively, and the light energy is what the actual mechanism is happening here. So we need more light in order to get a better outcome. Then after you've done light therapy, you can move to the topical light infusion, where you place a topical on the skin after the light therapy. The light is placed over the topical. The topical then is what does the work. So if I used crummy topical ingredients, I'd have a crummy outcome. Good topical ingredients, the better the outcome. So one side of the device, it offers you the light therapy where you can stimulate the cells and energize the cells so that the body is more effective and heals faster. The other side is where we can actually push in the particular topicals. So most times when we do these together, the first thing we do is the light therapy. We do a 10-minute red light session, then we put on our topical light infusion, and then we infuse in the product. So we get an instantaneous change from the infusion of the product, and we get long-term benefits from the red light that's been done. Now, these are some buzzwords when you're doing light therapy that you should keep in mind. When you're talking to your clients and they don't want to do a peel or they don't want to do something aggressive, the great thing about light therapy is it's safe, it's painless, non-surgical, it's effective, it can be done all year round. You don't have to worry about different skin types. It's working on a cellular level. It's not affecting just certain types of skin and not others. So you can kind of see what makes it so effective is being able to use that all year round, no side effects. Now, who is not a good candidate for light therapy? If someone has photophobia to light, that means small amounts of sunlight affects them and has a damaging effect, or they're unable to metabolize it, they can get prolonged redness of the skin. It can stay that way for some time, 24 to 36 hours following light therapy. They would not be a good candidate. Someone who is pregnant, has not been formally tested. I've done it on several of my friends that are pregnant, but unless you know them, I wouldn't start messing with diverting blood flow and things like that. So pregnancy is definitely one that's considered a contraindication. Certain medications can make you photosensitive. So if you do light therapy when you're on certain medications, you can actually go ahead and have prolonged redness too. So just kind of keep in mind who's a good candidate and who isn't. Most people are good candidates. The other thing is what to look for is you want the right wavelengths, making sure that you have the scientifically backed wavelengths. You need to make sure you have enough output or power, anywhere between 30 and 200 milliwatts. You need to make sure that the system is designed so that it can get close to the skin tissue. You need to make sure the LEDs have a narrow bandwidth. You need to make sure that you have enough support to be able to use it. Your clearances, that sort of thing. We have 5 FDA clearances on the Lightwave device. It's cleared for periorbital wrinkles and fine lines. It's cleared for pain management. It's cleared for precancerous lesions and pigmentation. And it's cleared for mild to severe acne. So those are the different clearances we have on the device as well. Now, the other thing I didn't really cover, which I'd like to spend just approximately 1 to 2 minutes, is covering when we go ahead and we charge for it. If we are looking at doing light therapy and we're charging for it, you need to make sure, first of all, you're doing a professional treatment. You have the right dosage, you have enough power. Then I see all over the board, some people charge $50, some people are charging $200, some people are charging, $20. I saw somewhere the other day, someone had a little handheld and they were charging 20 bucks. So deciding what you charge will be based on the treatment that you're giving. If you're doing a peel on someone and they have no effect that they can see or no change long term, you can't charge as much as if they actually get a good result. Same thing with light therapy. If you're using the right parameters, you're giving a good dosage, then you can charge more. But you still want to go ahead and establish your value. So regardless of what you charge, value is really important. Doesn't mean what you have to charge, but when I do the trainings with light therapy, the value of a Lightwave treatment is $125. So that's meaning that you're going ahead and stimulating millions of cells to produce collagen elasticity. The value is $125. You may charge 50, you may charge 75, you may charge 100. But the first thing you want to do is establish the value. If you undervalue it and you say my Lightwave therapy is only worth 50 bucks, then it's really hard to ever go up in price. But if you say, hey, this treatment is $125 treatment, and you're getting it today for 50 or 75 or $100, then you've established the value at 125, and now you're giving them a better deal. So I would always establish the value on light therapy at 125 in your facial, and then decide, are you doing just LED light therapy? Are you doing a cleanse with that? Are you doing any kind of exfoliation with that? And then that will increase your value. So that if you can establish the value, you'll get a better outcome as far for your clients, because they're realizing, oh my gosh, I'm getting $125 treatment and I only paid 70 bucks. That's a great value. So don't start and just say, hey, my light therapy is $50 or $75. You really need to establish it at $125, especially if you're doing Lightwave, and then you can give them a lower price point, but the value still remains the same at $125. Now, if you're doing an Amazon mask that you bought for 300 bucks, or you're doing some cheap little panel that they can buy online too, then your value is not going to be nearly as high, because now all of a sudden you're giving them something that they could go buy off the internet or off of Amazon. So your value decreases. One thing with the Lightwave system is we don't sell direct to consumer. You can only get it through a professional. So therefore the value is much higher, because we're giving out the proper doses. We're making sure that we're getting a professional treatment. We don't have to worry that there's UV light in there. We don't have to worry that it's not creating a biphasic dose response. So in fact, we make sure that it's affecting the cells. So our value should start at 125. If you want to give them a better price point, fine. But if you're doing a mask that you purchased for just $100 or $200 or $300 off of Amazon, and they can go buy it themselves, you can't establish that same value, because first of all, you're not getting the same dosage, but second of all, it's something that they can go get themselves and cut you out of the picture. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. I know there's lots of questions and lots of chat going on. So I think, Sheri, we're going to open it up for questions, because I know science is hard. After an hour, people are probably sleeping or visiting their kids or doing some wine by now. So I think we can go ahead and open it up for questions. I don't know how to do that. Let's see here. Let's see. Is Sheri coming back on to do the questions? Hello? Hello? Okay, let's see what we got here.
Travis, I'm so sorry. Hey, Kari, how are you?
Good. So I think we're going to do questions if there's any questions that need to be answered. I wasn't quite sure how to do those, so I'm looking at them here to try to.
No problem. I'm actually going to help you with that. I'm also going to bring Sheri on. I apologize. I was on the call with our IT department.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, wow, Kari, as I have said this before to you, I've taken your class in the past, and I always learn something. So today was no different. While a lot of it was review, it just, every time you hear it, just more and more and more sinks in. So thank you. I think that has been just an excellent class. I hope you all loved it as much as I did. We're going to do questions before, just reminding everybody to place your entries into winning the AVI Honeysuckle hydrating mask. All you have to do is take a photo of you taking this class, post it on the Esthetician Connection Facebook page using the hashtag ECLovesLightwave, and 3 of you are going to win the AVI Honeysuckle hydrating mask and an EC brush. So I didn't want to forget to remind you guys to do that. All right, Kari, we've got a bunch of questions, so let's go. Let's see. first question from Cynthia. Are there any independent clinical studies proving that light therapy stimulates mitochondria? How many studies are there?
Yes, that's an excellent question. If you go to the Lightwave page, we've put up probably links to 20 different studies that are up there, but there are over 3,000 studies that have been done.
Delegation. Do you need to be under a physician to do this?
It's all going to be based on your state, but there are no states that require a physician at this time. But it's also what you're treating. If I'm treating it for precancerous lesions, then yeah, you'll need a physician. But if you're stimulating collagen and elastin production, improving the look of the skin, you don't. So it really comes down to what you're treating.
And this is, someone asked if it was great for cystic acne, and you did an excellent presentation on a case study that you did. So overall, you would say that this is very good for treating cystic acne.
And then they need to stick with it. That's the big thing with cystic acne, because it's continuing to present itself. It don't quit after 2 to 3 treatments. So they have to stick with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How would we even find the amount of adults in a product? How would they even be able to look for that?
You can go right now to Google and you can say, what is the Dalton weight of blah, blah, blah. Let's say water. You want to know the Dalton weight. So you'd have to go to each ingredient. And if you wanted to get an idea of the Dalton weight, realistically, how we found out the Dalton weight of ours is we sent it to a lab and we had it tested. So the University of Texas is the one that tested our Dalton weights to determine how the Dalton weight was. But you could take the individual ingredients and add them up and get an idea.
Gotcha. It's going to be hard for them to Google like the name brand product. That's probably not going to be accessible. It's going to be more, what are these 10 ingredients in it? Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Can you use different topicals after each other? And I think you talked on that as well, because you've got a few topical light infusions that you do layer. I mean, that's kind of the concept of how you do that, right?
Yes. So we have tested where the finished Dalton weight, if we take a serum and then we take a cream, what is the combination of that Dalton weight and how much pulsing is it going to take to drive in that particular topical? So yes, you can definitely layer products, but it's a matter of knowing what your Dalton weight is and how much time they need to be under there.
And talk a little bit about eye protection. A few questions on that.
Eye protection is really important if you're using a high-powered device. So I always say, if your device doesn't require you to use eye protection, if it's not strong enough to affect the eyes, how is it strong enough to affect the tissue? Mm-hmm. So you absolutely want to be using eye protection at all times. Now, does it have to be the eye protection for the person administering the treatment? No, unless you take your head and you stick it under the device and you make direct contact. Why? Because those little light particles are coming in through the side of the eye when we see it. That's called the sclera. So if it comes in directly through the retina, it can create damage. Through the sclera, it's very beneficial and it helps with macular degeneration. So when your client's lying there, absolutely. So what kind of eye protection? At a minimum, LED eye protection, all the way up to laser.
Gotcha. That's perfect. And then we have, I love this question. Sarah asked, is an esthetician able to purchase this device? And I think now would be a really good time to let them know, yes, you guys can purchase this. And here's the fun part. One, the Esthetician Connection has the LED, a few of their units on our website, which is www.estheticianconnection.com. The other thing that's really important to mention is that Lightwave has decided to offer their React system, their 1250 React system, on sale for $12.99, and it's normally $24.99. So you are saving over $1,000, $1,200, which is kind of crazy. But because this price is unheard of, because this is such a special promotion, they're only going to release 10 of them at this price. So I have to give everybody a heads up on that. I do think they will all go. So if this is something you are interested in, their 1250 system, they're going to have 10 of them available for $12.99, and it's normally $24.99. Did I get that right, Kari? I think I did.
Yeah. So it's 1,200 LEDs is what it's a
1,200. Oh, the 1,200. I want to wire it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they can get that for $12.99. But what I wanted to mention is I saw somebody was asking, like, what light device should they start out with? If you start with the 1,200 LED device, and that's how many LEDs are on that device, 1,200, which is significantly more than most you'll find in the market. At any point within 1 year, you can actually upgrade to our 2880 LED device. And so that will cut down on your time. It will give you better results faster. But what that's, anytime within 1 year, we give you 100% of the money you paid for the lower end device, and we put it towards the next model. So we have what we call a 1 year trade-in value. So we'll give you 100% of your value towards the next level device.
And that's awesome, guys. If you're thinking about starting with LED, it's an amazing price point. You're never going to see it lower than this, which is awesome. I was so, like, my jaw dropped when I saw this price come through. And you kind of get a feel for it. You start using it, you start seeing results. And if you go, I really think I want this unit, I want to bump up to the other unit, getting 100% of that trade-in. That's pretty awesome. So thank you for bringing that up. But I also want to point out that next week we have our big spring event. And we're going to have some LED or Lightwave ABI products in it. So if some of the ABI products are starting to pique your interest, that's going to be in our event coming up next week. I'm going to pull up some more questions. Hold on. How do you find pricing? We just talked about that. What's the best device for an esthetician starting out? I believe we just hit on that.
And Sheri, what I'd like to recommend is those starting out is you get the $1,200 device, you start making money with that device, because now you have that $125 value treatment, and then you save up, and anytime within 1 year you have the money then to move into the more elite system.
And this is, this question is going to come up. It's come up a couple times. What would you say is the biggest difference between the Lightwave LED and, for example, you've got Saluma or Lightstim on the market? What is the biggest difference between those other brands that they are seeing in other locations?
Well, there's two major differences. One of them is dosage. So you're going to see results. We're making sure we're meeting the medical dosage delivery. So we're making sure we get results with each and every treatment. So the power is significantly higher, treatment times are shorter. The other thing, and that's just kind of showing you with my lights, the fingers that I was showing you during the treatment. And the other thing is we make sure we do one light at a time, so that we're stimulating certain cells, and then we stimulate the next cells instead of turning on all the lights. It's so much cheaper and easier to turn on all lights than to regulate which light goes on at which time. And of course, we have the topical light infusion, which is like getting two systems in one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I was hoping we would touch on that single light thing too. Oh shoot, I just got this page. It's got huge on me. What is a good glycation protocol? Do you have something with the TLI?
We do. We have a couple different things. I would highly recommend that they start out with the treatment, the anti-aging treatment, when they're looking at doing that one. We do have some new stuff coming up the pike. So anybody who has a Lightwave device, we will be releasing a new topical light infusion, which is a vitamin C, growth factor mixture. And it comes, which is kind of cool, it uses a sphere. So it actually has a dry sphere, and they actually mix it at the time of usage. So it has this little sphere type that actually gets mixed for the topical light infusion. So you get very, very, very potent vitamin C with no irritancy. And so that's a new one that's coming once we get through this pandemic.
I'm excited for that, guys. The Lightwave is the system that I use in a lot of the videos we do. It is amazing, and I've done their topical light infusion. We have a few videos on the YouTube channel. If you want to kind of see it in action, you can go to the Esthetician Connection YouTube channel, and I believe there's quite a few Lightwave treatments, including the topical light infusion, if you just want to take a peek at how it works. Another question, can I use LED on other parts of the body, and such as stretch marks or blue veins? Because I think there's definitely a difference between those two. So what would you say on that?
I would say absolutely for stretch marks. Vascular heat is much better for vascular issues. So I haven't seen a whole lot of change with LED for vascular. Spider veins, maybe a slight change, but really IPL is so much geared towards that, so much better. But if there's something better out there, then use it. But for stretch marks, if they're old stretch marks, you need to ablate them first. You need to either do some kind of ablation, whether it's a peel or something to tell the body we need new cells here.
Right, exactly. Rima asked, with neutralized peels, you do the infrared first, and then you do the peel, then you do the red LED after. And I believe that's what you were talking about. Am I correct? Right.
100%.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with you not wanting to put the heat on the skin afterwards and all those things.
And we're going to get a better absorption. Infrared light increases product absorption. So if I do infrared light and then I put my peel solution on, I get a better uptake.
That's awesome. I want to get, oh, Kari, can you share your email address too, so that if anyone's watching, they can write it down if they have questions, where they can shoot them over to?
No, I'm just kidding. Yes. Sorry, that's my sarcasm. Kari P at lightwavetherapy.com. So Karip as in Paul at lightwavetherapy.com.
And Violetta said this, and I think this is important, Violetta. I agree with you totally on this. This is her comment. Best LED class I've been so far, and I have been on a few. So I agree. I have taken Kari's cat class in the past, and maybe even twice. I think I've gone to 2 different trade shows to do it. And each time, I mean, Kari, you know, you're extremely ignited. Look at her skin. Look how beautiful her skin is. You don't get skin like that. You know, she is a walking example of what light therapy can do. And you're stunning.
I'm almost 50.
Yeah, you're stunning. And Mike's skin looks great too. So it's a real testament to the product that you've produced. So I just want to make sure I touch on that, because while you were doing the class, I'm looking at your you're right. But I'm telling you, this has been, you know, when I do these Zoom room classes, I go in and out a lot because I'm trying to get multiple things done. I have not left your class for a second. Oh. And that's crazy, because, and I've heard it before. I just learn something more every time I do it.
I've never done Zoom classes or webinar trainings because I get so bored. So I'm like, I only do in person, and people are like, please just do a webinar. I'm like,
well, you did it. TLI versus the regular TLI.
Yes, so our topical light infusion is broken into 2 different categories. There's what we call a treatment, which is done in a series. That means you're going to need multiple infusions of this skincare product to see results. And then there's what's called boosters. And boosters you can do, let's say someone just popped in for a facial. They're not coming back, or they may be back in 6 weeks. You can do a booster so that by the time they leave, their skin has a glow to it. It's a short-lived, instant gratification. I like to think of it like if I went to the gym and they sucked out 2 pounds, might not be where I want to be, but at least I got some instant gratification. Right. And so where the treatment is more the long-term regimen, where it's going to sculpt you and make you look how you want to be. So oftentimes we'll start with the booster, and then we'll have them do a series of treatments, and then a booster in between, and then one at the end, or just a one-off.
And Rima, that's a great question, because I've often thought the same thing, because I'll look at my TLIs and I'll be like, oh, this is a booster. No, wait, this is a treatment. What's, you know, I'm right there with it. So you just clarified it. Thank you. Let's see. Karen said, sending appreciation to Kari for this intelligent, fine webinar. Best presentation ever. See, another one. You do very good on webinars. You should do more. Okay. I just purchased a Lightwave machine. Every time I expose to the sun just a little, as 5 minutes, my skin gets dark spots and hives. I don't know if it's because my health conditions, which is lupus. What treatment would you recommend? So if she's prone to dark spots and even hives, it looks like, and she does have lupus, what would you put her on with the Lightwave? Because she does have the machine.
Well, it would come down to what medications too. So I wouldn't start recommending anything till I know if there's medications that you're on, because some of them can be light sensitive. Right. So there is a list that we give out with our device, and I'm happy to give that again, but it's just knowing that they could get prolonged redness. But when in doubt, our device has red IR combination, where it does red first and then infrared after. I would do a shortened one of that particular setting. So I would start out with 5 minutes of red and 5 minutes infrared, see how well it was tolerated, see how the skin reacts, and then up the dosage each time I treated her.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, this is interesting. Is there more benefit from a Lightwave topical infusion versus something like a Regenerate, where you're doing nano infusion, that's just penetrating into the stratum corneum? This is doing a different concept. I mean, you all know I do them together, and I think they work really well together. So Kari, what's your input on, have you seen a difference in absorption?
Well, I think one of them you're getting topicals just right under the layer of skin, and the other one you're getting it more to a cellular effect. So obviously we want to affect both. More of our boosters are more like the Regenerate, where it's more superficial. And then our treatments are more peptides, which are going to go deeper and give you the long-term change. So pairing the two together, I think, would be your best possible outcome. I mean, when we can get as many tricks from our bag as possible, we're going to get the best.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not throw everything at it, but definitely put some thought into it.
And that's exactly, I would agree. Putting them together is going to give that client, you know, a win-win. How does LED help with fibromyalgia?
So it causes the nerve endings if you use LED that has a pulse rate. So, and this is just some things that I've seen on the studies, is what they've shown is it will pulse. And so what you do is you continue to pulse it at a rapid rate, and it causes the nerve endings to fire, 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 fire. It fatigues those nerve endings and stops sending the signal to the brain. So it's not necessarily improving the fibromyalgia, it's just decreasing the pain.
And what I do, I suffer from fibromyalgia pain, and it's one of the most horrible things I live with. What setting, because I feel those nerves, like when I have an attack, it's almost like I can just feel them firing. It's the craziest disease ever. What setting do you recommend putting that on?
You can either go to the discomfort setting, or what's great about red and infrared is it's customizable. So what you would do is you would slow the pulse rate down. And so you can actually, it would have almost like a strobe type effect that you would see with your eyes. You don't have to go quite that slow, but it'll be a little flickering to you. And what that's going to do is it's sending energy, energy, energy. It's causing those nerve endings to fire, fire, fire. They become fatigued. They stop sending the signal to the brain, and then you get relief. So the full body capsule that I kind of showed just in a brief slide, that's kind of really geared towards.
Best for that, yeah. That's definitely best for that. That's on my list, guys. If you've not seen their capsules, it's insane. My protocol is with so my protocol with microneedling is infrared for 10 minutes, then numbing, and after my microneedling, she does 20 minutes of red.
Okay, well, yeah. I can tell you that's a great one, but what you could also do is that you could go ahead and put the numbing cream on, increase your dosage of your infrared to 20 to 25 minutes, and then you could do it. But either way, because once you've done that infrared, you're going to get a better uptake of the numbing cream. You're going to need less numbing cream and less time. But I have seen, especially with NumbMaster, we've tested what's called the refractive index. So that's how much light can actually get through it and how much bounces off. It has the same refractive index, so that means not much light particles is bouncing off of that. So if I increase my dosage of light therapy, I can do the numbing cream and the infrared light simultaneously because we've tested it. We know what kind of effect that would have.
That's awesome. That's good to know. Thank you. Someone asked, where does Kari offer her classes? And I know I can answer that. She does a lot of classes. Anytime you go to, when we eventually go back into the world, and you go to different trade shows across the country, look on the agenda for the speakers, and you will see that Kari does a lot of the, if not all, I know you do most of them, the Lightwave presentations. And I've told you guys this before, I know I've said it many times, is when I go to trade shows and I'm looking for places, classes to go to, I often start with the speaker. Because if I know that a speaker is going to be engaged and I'm going to get information from them, I'm going to be more likely to go to that speaker. So if I see Kari on a list, I know that that's, no matter what, she could be talking about coffee. And I go, I'll go, because she's really good at educating. So she's one of those educators that you can, if you've heard this class before, you can see her multiple times, but it's definitely going to be at the trade shows when we start doing them again, which I don't know when that's going to be, but eventually. Do you do them anywhere? Well, you have them in your office too, don't you?
Yes. So if you own a Lightwave device, we offer free training for life. And so you can bring your staff, you can bring yourself, we never charge for them. And I was doing them once a month. I got, with the Hashimoto's, I went down to once a quarter because it was a bit much with the trade shows and with those. But they fill up kind of quickly, but we do, it's a 2-day certified training. You come in and I just inundate you with everything you could possibly want to know on light therapy and topical light infusion, and my kids.
All right, I'm gonna see if I'm missing anything, guys. Do you offer on-site? Okay, you just answered that. Okay, the Elite system. I know we've talked about the promo that we're going, Christopher, you were talking about the $12.99 price. There's a link on the EC page, and I've already posted it, but I will post it one more time. I will try to tag you in that. Someone asked if you could talk about the other systems you have that they can upgrade to. And if you can share prices, that would be great, or at least roundabouts, that would help them.
So the next level up, it goes, I think, starting somewhere around a couple thousand more. I'm not a salesperson. I really don't know, and I'm so sorry.
No.
But it basically comes down to the next level of our systems. What they do is they have more dosage, a higher dosage, so you need less treatments and less treatment time. So if time is a factor, especially someplace in New York where you're trying to get as many in and out, then you're going to want to go ahead and have a more higher dose system. So, and they also are built slightly different. So we have the $12.99 system, which is a tabletop. It's primarily just for the face. So it's really hard to do on the body because it's not on a stand. It's more just a tent that goes over a particular area. And then the next one up from there comes on a stand. And that $12.99 price point has 1,200 LEDs of red, infrared, and blue. So it does each one individually and it controls them. And it also has the topical light infusion. Then the next one up from there is the 2,880 LED system, and that's on a stand, and that's our React 2880. And so that one has more power. And then we have the Elite system, which has the highest power supply. It does it anywhere from, I mean, you can go as short as 12 to 15 minutes with that system. Pumps out a lot of power. You see results in just a couple sessions. You don't need nearly as many. So you'll need more sessions with the lower end device. You'll need less sessions with the higher end. And it really is just about improving your game. If you've done something like Soluma and then you come and do a Lightwave treatment, it'll blow you away. We have people that are like, well, can I use the Soluma for my dog now? Or what should I do with it? Because it's just that much more power.
Right.
And if you think it's kind of like if I've always done a 15% lactic peel and then I move to a TCA, you go, oh my gosh, it's so different. So it's just kind of understanding what its capabilities are.
This is what, we are, Colleen, I'm going to answer this for you because we are already well over on our time. Where is the location? You guys are in Arizona, right? Is that where you're located? The 2-day classes are in Arizona at your location. What part of Arizona are you?
I am in Phoenix, so we are near Scottsdale. Yeah, we're all one. It's like, it just kind of spreads out. I'm in Deer Valley Air Park, so.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will say this again. It's been an excellent class. We could just chat, and we could have answers and questions for the next hour if we needed to. But if you did not get your question answered, and I went through them and we hit most of them. If you didn't, when you post your photo on the EC page, go ahead, type a question in. If we can answer that for you, we will. I have at 3:30, I know that a post went up with the link, the active link for the React system that we're offering 10 of them. So that'll be on there. And Christopher, I will try to tag you on that. I know there'll be only 10 of them. I do think they're all going to go. Also for next Monday, if you're thinking about looking into some of the ABA products, they've got a green tea product, they've got masks, they've got all sorts of skincare. That's going to be on promotion in our big spring event. So if you decide to go with the Lightwave now, you can go ahead and look for your ABI next week, which will be exciting. Kari, I can't thank you enough. Don't forget to post for this, guys, a photo of you, hashtag, someone asked that, hashtag is EC Loves Lightwave. That's what you use. 3 of you are going to win this. Kari, thank you a million times over for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Super fun. Loved it. Someone did say, is it good for rosacea? Yes, Lightwave therapy is great for rosacea. It will make them red right away, and then it will dissipate each time they come in. So.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you. Guys, you have been awesome, and thank you for all the questions. Thank you for attending the Zoom room. This Thursday Zoom room is at 2 o'clock with ThermoClear. We'll see you then. Bye, Kari. I appreciate it.
Bye, guys. Thanks.